All right, so good evening again, everyone. It is the 17th of May, Tuesday evening, where we're doing our live session with club members here on Zoom. If you are watching us on YouTube, then you're watching this 1 week later. So we record this and publish it 1 week later for everyone on YouTube. So if you are looking at any trade ideas or looking at any of the trades that we're talking about, make sure you check your charts because prices, I guarantee you, would have moved on from 1 week ago. So with that said, on Tuesday and Thursday nights, we have this club session where we go through trades on a shorter time frame and H1 time frame compared to our currency core where we do every day, where we look at trades on an H4 time frame. So I'll look at trades on a smaller time frame. And for today, we do have news to be released at 8:30. It is 8:08 right now, so we do have news to be released at 8:30. The US retail sales data. So I'll try and find possibly some trade ideas leading up to that news in a good news scenario and in a bad news scenario. So let's get started as usual. Any information shared in this video is not intended to be a trade recommendation. It is solely the opinion and views of myself. So please remember to do your own analysis prior to entering any trades. Right, so looking at the news here for today at 8:30, as I was telling you, core retail sales number for the US and retail sales number for the US. Retail sales number looking to go from a change of 0.5% to a 1%. So core retail is a change. So an upward tick of 1% in retail sales number, and the core retail sales dropping from a 1.1, still a small growth at 0.4%. Core retail sales excludes automobiles. If we do see, this is quite a straightforward news release with the US. This is quite a straightforward news release, is that if we see a uptick, you see a good number here on the retail sales number, it shows that consumers are more tended towards spending money. They have been spending money. And if you're not confident about the economy, if you don't need to, you won't spend money. So retail sales number, consumer sentiment, and consumer spending is a big proportion of indicating how well the economy is doing. It's a bit surprising. I'm a bit surprised to see retail sales number expected to be at 1%, because the talk about inflation being very high in the US, with that, usually what happens is consumers tend to hold off on their spending because things are getting more expensive, right? Things are getting more expensive, so they're holding off on their spending. I'm a little bit surprised to see it at 1%. So I'm anticipating either a 1% or maybe a 0.8, right? Slightly less than expected, bit of an upset there. So I'm planning for two scenarios. One, if it comes out at 1%, or if it's better, and then in the alternate scenario, if it's worse than expected, whether we're going to see the dollar weaken further, right? So there's the retail sales number to be released in just under 20 minutes right now. Things to pay attention to as well is this afternoon, well, about 1 hour and 45 minutes ago, the ECB, one of the members of the ECB, did come out and say 25 basis point rate hike in July is realistic. 50 basis points shouldn't be excluded. So quite hawkish coming from the ECB here with their talk, with one of the members talk about rates increases. And because of this, we saw the euro dollar shoot towards the upside. I was sharing with you all in the chat as well, in the club platform, where we saw the euro dollar moving up before this news. And then when this news came out of the blue, we saw the euro dollar push very significantly towards the upside. So if you're wondering why the euro dollar went up, this is one reason, right? Just to do a quick recap as well, the Aussie dollar has been climbing, and just this morning we did have the Aussie monetary policy meeting minutes. And if you read the minutes, there's a whole bunch in there, right? So I usually skip through or skim through all that, go straight towards the consideration for monetary policy. And what you'll notice here is that the members were actually considering, RBA members were actually considering 15 basis points, 25 basis points, or even a 40 basis points increase in rates, right? So what actually happened was they went with 25 basis points, but it's quite positive, quite hawkish to see that the members were actually considering that 40 basis points, right? So this is one other reason why we've seen the Aussie dollar find that base of their low point and seems to be climbing towards the upside right now. So several reasons put together towards why we see the euro dollar pushing higher, we see the Aussie dollar pushing higher. And from last night, where was it? We had the monetary policy report hearings. It's quite a big report, 14 pages here. I can't highlight paragraphs, so I just want to pick on the one main thing is that the MPC projection for CPI is expected to rise over the remainder of the year, averaging slightly over 10% at its peak in 2022 in Q4, right? So expectation for inflation in the UK to be slightly over 10%. If I came back to the news again, so that's the main thing there. If I came back to the news again, you can see that tomorrow we do have the UK CPI numbers to be released. Expected 9.1% was a 7. So 9.1 is still below that 10% expectation, which we are projecting towards in Q4. So if we do see a 9%, if we do see a 10% or 9 point something percent, it's coming very close towards their expectations or projections. That's most likely going to spur the Bank of England towards more aggressive rate hikes, And I think what you would have noticed is that when they had this news last night at 10:15, it resulted in the pound dollar pushing a lot higher, because now everyone is somewhat expecting or pricing in a bit of a rate hike scenario from the Bank of England, right? So just pay attention to that. We've already gone past this news, but pay attention to the CPI number for tomorrow. So those are some of the news to look at. After that, on Thursday, we do have employment numbers for the Aussie. I think it's not going to move prices too much. It might push the Aussie dollar up, but Thursday, still a couple of days to go. I think we're seeing a lot more activity now leading up to Thursday. So I'll update you about this into the club platform at a later stage. And then nothing much else, right? So the main thing is what's happening tonight and into tomorrow for the UK CPI data. With that said, looking at the dollar index, very interestingly, I was talking about it this morning. I was expecting it to find a base at 104 and push higher. It didn't. It actually broke that 104 level and dropped. All right, this drop actually coincides with the euro dollar getting stronger. So I've been telling you so many times already, euro dollar is a big proportion of the dollar index. So as the euro dollar got stronger, it pushed the dollar index towards the downside, testing that 103, came towards that 103 level, and then seems to be finding that base right now. So the dollar index does tend to have that big drop like here before bouncing back up again. I think that we might see a base here, but it depends on what's going to happen with the retail sales number as one of the first data to be released. Oh man, my throat's going again. So just check something. Okay, One more thing to pay attention to is tonight, well, early tomorrow morning, 2 a.m., we do have Fed Chair Powell speaking, and that's to speak about inflation at Wall Street Journal's Future of Everything Festival. That's going to be quite important, because if they do talk about inflation, if he does talk about inflation, saying that it's too high, they need to bring it back down, they need to increase rates, that's one of the things that could, or is very likely to push the US dollar back up again as they start pricing in scenarios of 50 basis points increases from the FOMC. So coming back to the focus, got slightly less than 10 minutes now to do this. The US retail sales number month on month, good news, bad news scenario. Let's go through the charts. So first one, Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar has been pushing up. It broke above just today. It broke above that 0.7 level. And if I zoomed out, you can see that I think one of the questions asked in the club was whether it's a good time to buy Aussie. A couple of hours ago, I was saying, look for it to break above that 0.7040 level before looking to buy. I hope that saved you on that trade. So it's turned down already. What I would be looking at Aussie dollar on the H1 time frame with this news to be released is if it's a good news scenario, right? So I'm looking at the Aussie dollar turning back down from this point. I would say in a good news scenario for the US, I'll be looking to short this down, sell it down at about that point. Below 0.7, you'd have a 30 pip stop loss. In this case, the take profit could be at about 60 pips, just because you can see when it breaks below this point, it drops quite significantly towards this level here, and about these points here. So above an interim level, a 1:2 risk-reward ratio towards the downside for the Aussie dollar on the H1 time frame. You could also look at this on the M15 with the news to be released, but I would say stay on the H1. With that, if you have any questions, club members, please feel free to ask it in the chat or unmute yourself. Kiwi dollar has been climbing back up as well. I would say that between the Aussie and the Kiwi, it looks like Kiwi dollar is not as ready as the Aussie, right? So, wait, I'll open one more. So the Aussie dollar here, in comparison, it's starting to turn down. It's starting to, it looks like it's topped up at that point and turning back down, especially that round number of 0.7. If it does break, I'm looking for the downside. Compared to the Kiwi dollar, it's found that horizontal, it can still go down. I do think it will go down, but possibly not as safe as the Aussie. So you could still be looking to sell the Kiwi down at this point. Take profit about 50 pips, stop loss at about 30 pips. A 1:1.6 risk-reward ratio towards the downside. Still possible, but it's right in the middle. It's avoiding that 0.64 level. So I'll still prefer the Aussie compared to the Kiwi dollar. With that, looking at the euro dollar. Okay, so in a good news scenario, good news for the US, I'll look at the Aussie dollar over the Kiwi. In a bad news scenario, what I'll be looking at is the euro dollar, right? Euro dollar with the talk 1 hour and 45 minutes ago, that talk about 50 basis points increase or 25 basis point increase. We saw the euro dollar push from that 104.75 to almost 105.58, right? Or 60 thereabouts. So we saw that big push towards the upside in a bad news scenario for the US. So if we see retail sales number come out less than expected, less than previous or less than expected at 0.8% thereabouts, then I would be looking at buying opportunities on the euro dollar, short-term buying opportunities to the euro dollar towards the upside. So above 105.60, let's move this up slightly, 105.60, I would have a 25 pips, 30 pips stop loss there, and about a 55 pip take profit towards the upside for that 1.0620 level. So I'm looking for an upward push if we see bad news from the US retail sales number, looking for it to push higher. So that's in a bad news scenario on the euro dollar. Another one on the bad news scenario on the euro dollar will be the, you all know it, pound dollar. So pound dollar has been pushing towards that upside since yesterday at 10 o'clock. So this was the news here. 10 p.m. this was the news. You can see that it tried coming down, and then with the news release, the monetary, no, what was it called? The monetary policy report hearings came out, and then at that 10 o'clock time, we saw the pound dollar just keep climbing towards the upside. What I did was I got in at that 1.2246 level, 1.2246 level during the news, and then I got out at that level there, and then I got in this morning as it broke higher at 1.2341, 1.2341 here as it was breaking this consolidation, I think at about just before the call this morning. So at about that point there, and then I had my stop loss, my take profit, I kept pushing it towards the upside. So my take profit right now is at 1.27. So I've pushed it all the way towards 1.27 at about, well, all the way up there, right? Just in case it shoots up. This I would look at in the bad news scenario for the US, continue that trend to push towards the upside. So again, look for that buying opportunity as if it breaks above this 1.24 or 1.25 level, right? So 1.25, I'll push it higher at about 1.2520. Oh no, wait, this is the wrong one. 1.2520, I would say stop loss, again, 30, 40 pips, take profit. I would go a bit more aggressive on this towards the upside because the pound dollar has been pushing so much towards the upside. It could follow momentum with a bad news scenario on the US retail sales number. So between the euro dollar and the pound dollar, which ones to pay attention to, which ones to be more attractive? I would say that it would be the pound dollar just because of the way it has been pushing higher. It has been climbing because of the fundamental news, pushing up. The euro, despite it being pushed up by news, it's just one member speaking. The pound has been, because of the monetary policy report minutes, pushing it higher. So I would say that I would look at the pound dollar more than the euro dollar in a bad news scenario for the US. Oh man, so it's going. So with that, just doing a quick one, I wouldn't trade this during the news, but euro pound we were talking about this morning. This was a trade I did get into as well right after the call. It shot down, hit the take profit. I love that support level there because it hit and it bounced back up. So at this point, this news, don't trade the euro pound. If you didn't get into that trade, then it's too late already. It shouldn't be considered anymore. With that, US yen, I'm trying to rush a bit just for the news to be released. US yen sitting right at this 129.32 level. I'm very keen, but I think that you have a lot of other trading opportunities. You have the Aussie, you have the pound already. In any other scenarios, I would say that you could be looking at a straddle here at 129.45 to buy up 30 pip, and then to sell down below 129.20, 129.20, you can look to sell down again, 30 pip, 30 pip. So this could be that straddle as it sits in this level. If it breaks higher, you have that upside. If it breaks lower, you have that downside. But I think if you were to put on this straddle, then it would be a bit too many trades, especially if you're looking at the pound dollar and the Aussie dollar. So choose between either doing this straddle, have it in place, be ready for that 30 pips, or look at the Aussie dollar or look at the pound dollar and activate that trade when the news gets released, right? So that would be the US yen. I wouldn't normally look at the euro yen or the pound yen with a news release, just because euro yen and pound yen, you would have to consider what the euro dollar is doing, what the pound dollar is doing, putting it all together, what the US dollar is doing, putting it all together before getting into a trade. For a new scenario, there's just a little bit too many things to think about before getting in. So I wouldn't look at that. So I'll leave you now for 2 minutes to consider, and if you have any questions, ask. The Aussie dollar in a good news scenario to sell it back down on the US good news scenario, the pound dollar to buy it up in a bad news scenario, and also the US yen to have that straddle for the buy or the sell opportunity orders for the news. Which ones would you be looking at? Options are you more tended towards? Put it in the chat while we wait for the news to be released. Put it in the chat. Which ones would you be more tended towards? We have 1 minute to the news. Aussie, US strengthen. Okay, good. It's one. So we're looking at the news. If we do see a 1%, if we do see a 1%, if we do see a 1 point something percent, likely to see the dollar strengthen. We could see the Aussie dollar turn back down. Anyone else? So looking at the dollar here, dollar index on the H1 time frame. So open one more and have the Aussie dollar there. All right, so now we have the Aussie dollar here looking to sell down if you have a good news scenario. Pound dollar looking to buy up if it's a bad news scenario. US yen on a buy or a sell order in that straddle. Remember to close off the other trade which doesn't get active, the other order which doesn't get activated. And then the dollar now looking like it's moving up because the news should have been just released. 0.6% higher. Core retail sales is higher than expected. Why is this not loading up? And retail sales number at 0.9%, just slightly less than the 1% forecast. So a slightly mixed there. Core retail sales higher than expected, lower than previous, obviously, and retail sales number at 0.9% higher than previous and lower than expected at a 1%. So what we're seeing here now is dollar hasn't moved too much, hasn't done too much yet. US yen pushing up. You could, if you had that order, I don't know if you had that order, would have triggered. So possibly looking at the dollar strength pushing higher. At this point, what you want to do is to be removing that sell order. So if you had that pushing up, pound dollar turning back down, which means that Aussie dollar is moving lower. At this point, because of it being a bit safer, we wanted to break that 0.7 level, which means that we have to wait for it to drop that 30 something pips towards the downside before looking to sell. Possibly happen, well, it's likely to happen, but not going to happen within this next 2 minutes. So wait for it to happen. Pound dollar pushing lower. Yen is pushing up. right? So if you had that yen, I'll move this across. If you had that yen, that would be in a profit of about 10 pips now, about 10 pips now. So I don't know if you guys set that order, but remember to close off the sell order there. Yen is pushing higher. What else can we look at? What was it? US CAD. US CAD was one of the other ones I was looking at this afternoon. So US CAD is pushing higher. So it seems to have found that base at 1.28, now pushing back up, right? US CAD was that big reversal we were talking about last week, looking for it to come down towards that 1.2850 level. I hope you did get into that trade. And then at 1.28, it seems to be finding that base pushing back up. Not ready to buy yet. I wouldn't be looking to buy the US CAD yet unless it breaks above 1.2850. Then like what happened here, we could see it push back up, but not ready yet. US yen still up at still about that 10, almost 12, 15 pips move. In a trading scenario, you might want to close out that trade or hold on to that towards that 30 pips. You're halfway there. Pound dollar sitting right across, Aussie dollar testing lower. So comment was yen pairs are moving. Euro yen pushing up. I think this is from back there. Okay. So euro yen pushing up because of how the yen is doing. So yen is pushing higher, pulling the euro yen up. But I see this level at 1.37. Current price 1.3645. Quite limited upside. Still possible to move up, but quite limited. So I'll be a bit careful, especially with that consolidation here at 1.136.56. So just be a bit careful if it breaks up. Not a bit of upside, limited upside there. Yeah, euro yen is in your zone. Good stuff. Pound yen. Pound yen, we were just talking about this as it went towards the 161 level. If it breaks above 162, which is that point there, then yeah, like you said, if it breaks above, we could, no, not that one. Above 162, then we could see this push up. I'll be very careful with the pound yen. I like pound yen because of the volatility, the quick move, especially if it breaks above 162. But look at the pound dollar. If it doesn't move higher, if it struggles to move higher, it has moved a lot already. It has moved about since last night at 10 o'clock to now, almost 250 pips towards the upside, looking like it might retrace a little bit or sit in consolidation. If that does happen, then pound yen might go towards 162 and test that level a little bit. So just be careful with the pound yen for further upside. If it breaks, yeah, I'll be looking for some buying opportunity towards the one. I think if it breaks 162, we can see 163 quite quickly. You can see every time it bounces off 162, we see a quick move towards 163. US yen retracing back down now on the H1 time frame. Would say that if you didn't close out your trade because the news came out a little bit mixed at that 0.6, 0.9, we're not going to see a big push towards dollar strength. Might fluctuate a little bit, so just be careful of that. Fed's Bullard, most pressing issue for the Fed is inflation. We all know that already, and that's why we see the dollar looking for some action. 50 basis point increases at coming meeting is a good base case for now. So Fed Chair Bullard, Fed Bullard, Member Bullard is trying to talk it up, trying to talk about that 50 basis points increase to the dollar, but not doing too much on the dollar index. still struggling to break higher. But if they keep talking about it and they do come up with those 50 basis points or even more, then we're going to see the dollar possibly push higher. US yen, not too flash. Pound dollar actually looking like it's going to move a little bit higher again. I would say let this close out before we see any further upside, before the candle to close. Aussie dollar testing back and pound yen still struggling at that point. So what you could notice here is that despite the news, right, it's a bad news here on retail sales number, a small increase, smaller, bigger than expected, but still at 0.6% increase on the core retail sales number. We're seeing dollar still following that trend, weakening slightly, continue to weaken. What you notice here is revision. It was a 0.5%. It got revised to 1.4. So actually this looks like quite a bad number now, because retail sales number from a 0.5 revised to 1.4, expected 1 came out at 0.9, so it's bad. Previous on the core retail sales was 1.1, came out at 0.6. Oh, revised to 2.1, came out at 0.6. Despite it being better than expected, still a lot worse than previous now. Possibly that's why we see that dollar weakening or failing to strengthen at this point, right? So I would say that US yen would have limited upside. We can see that it struggled to break high over the last couple of days. So if you did get into that trade, I would say, close out small profits, revisit this, look into the trend following ones. For example, the pound dollar towards the upside, the euro dollar towards the upside. So now we're moving away from the news scenario where we looked at the news as a mixed scenario there. Now we're back to looking at that dollar. Is it going to weaken further towards the 103 round number there, which means that we're going to see euro dollar pushing higher. We're likely to, well, definitely going to see pound dollar pushing higher. That's why I have my take profit at 1.27. Aussie dollar, I think that despite everything pushing higher, you will still need it to break above 0.7040 before we see any upside. Kiwi dollars, I'll take that. Oops. That away. I'll take that away on Kiwi dollar because it's not going to do anything, and I wouldn't get into any trades there on the Kiwi dollar. Pound yen pushing higher, coming very close to the 162 level. So I think that with the pound dollar pushing higher, with the pound yen pushing higher, if it breaks 162, we could see 163 quite quickly. So I would be looking at a possible trade there towards the upside, say about 162.28 or 162.30. Stop loss very tight, 30 to 40 pips there. Take profit at 163 would be a 72 pips. So you're looking at 1:1.75 towards the upside, or you can just put your take profit higher towards a 142 pips, 1:3, and then decide whether to close out in the middle at 163, right? So you can set a higher take profit and look to close out earlier. And then euro yen pushing higher. I think that between the euro yen and the pound yen, I would look at pound yen instead. But euro yen, if it does push higher, I would look for it to reject 137 and sell down. So just a little bit different on the euro yen in that sense. But better, that would be a counter trend scenario, a counter trend trade, which could be a lot more high risk. So something to consider as a bit of a contrarian view If it rejects that level below 1, it goes up and turns back down from 136.79. Can be looking at a 40 pip stop loss, 160 pip take profit, 1 to 4 towards the downside on the euro yen. Why I'm thinking that is just because of how it broke down from this point, and then we saw that quick downward move. So I'm looking for it to go up, test, reject, and then look to sell it back down again. So far, nothing moved significantly across the board. US CAD as well, shot up, came back down, not doing too much again. So nothing much else. Any questions at this point? Anything that you want to, any trades to look at, or any questions on trades to look at? If not, let's see what else to look at. Gold hasn't been doing too much. Yeah, gold hasn't been doing too much there. Euro pound. No, okay, where's my euro pound? No, that one. So euro pound, can it turn back down? I don't think so. I wouldn't be trying to trade the euro pound back down. WTI is moving higher. Will CAD follow? I think that going back to the US CAD, I think that for CAD, you know, if WTI does, or given that it's moving higher, I would only be looking if it goes up above that 1.2850, because just since the 13th to now to the 17th, it's dropped from 1.30 to 1.28, right? So a big drop. Any upward move is a big counter trend. I think that not just WTI, but we need the dollar to actually strengthen towards the upside to actually push the US CAD up. So I think just oil alone, possibly not enough, especially with the dollar looking like it's pushing lower. Right, hope I answered your question there. Pound dollar not doing too much. That's it. Right, everything else is just sitting right across now. A bit uneventful. We were just joking about that before the call, that we're prepping for this news, and would it be an uneventful one? It actually did, right? It shot up a little bit, went up, USD went up about 10, 12 pips before coming back down again. So nothing much else has moved too much. With that said, anything else to look at? If not, I'll call an early end to the session, just so that I can jump back into looking at some trades as well. All right, with that, I will upload this for the club members right away. And for everyone on YouTube, make sure you join the club. If not, hope you enjoyed the session. Bye-bye now. Take care.